Starting off this countdown, we have the Half Moon schooner yacht. This was a German racing yacht that was built in 1908 Germany. The yacht was built as a wedding present for Count Gustav von Böglin und Halbach. Yeah, that was his full name, what a mouthful. Anyways, the yacht was eventually seized by the British during World War II and resold to become a US cabaret boat during the Prohibition era. In fact, its original name was the Germania, but when it resold, it got named the Half Moon. But the yacht ended up sinking during a terrible storm in 1930. Now it lies at the bottom of the ocean near Key Biscayne, Florida. In fact, now it's a popular dive spot for snorkelers and divers.
At number 9, we have 25 degrees south, 153 degrees east, Frasers Island, Australia. Australia is a beautiful place. It's like hot Canada with more fighting and beer. Honestly, I've never been there. I'm just basing it off of movies and TV. I'm really stereotyping you guys. I'm very sorry. But globally, Australia is known for housing some of the most dangerous creatures on the planet, and Frasers Island is considered the most dangerous place in Australia. It's basically a funnel for several different dangerous species. To start it off, there are two types of jellyfish which are common to Frasers Island: Irukandji and blue bottles. Both of those jellyfish have stings so severe that they will send you to the hospital. And if the waters weren't dangerous enough, this is also a hotspot for young great white sharks. I'm assuming they go to these beaches for biting practices. They want to get their reflexes nice and sharp before they chase down some surfers. So you might be saying to yourself, well, I'll just stay out of the water and I'll go explore the island. Well, there are packs of wild dingoes running around waiting to turn your tibia into a chew toy. Oh, and if you get attacked by any of these wild animals, there is zero medical services on the island. So you better hope you don't bleed out fast while the helicopter is zooming you to save your life. At number 8, we have 12 degrees north, 57 degrees east, Danikil Desert, Ethiopia. We're jumping back into the heat, and with winter just around the corner, this place makes me kind of jealous. I know that temperatures in deserts are high enough to kill someone, but I think it might be nicer than having to wait for a bus in the snow. Anyways, the Danikil Desert, also known as the Danikil Depression, is one of the hottest places on the planet, and because of its extreme heat, it's home to natural wonders. First, there is a decent amount of volcanic activity. This might be one of the only places on Earth where you walk into the desert to cool off. There's also mysterious salt pools. These are one of the largest tourist attractions in the area. Salt deposits build up on the sides of these pools, and the water is packed with sulfur. The salt has the aesthetic of a rimmed glass straight from nature's cocktail lounge. However, don't drink from one of these pools unless you want a slow, painful death. And I think we can agree we're all looking for swift and numb when it comes to dying. The pools are extremely poisonous. Even the air just above the pools is so packed with carbon dioxide that when small animals get too close, they will suffocate and die. And here's the cherry on top of the sundae, this place is nicknamed the Gateway to Hell. Wow. Beautiful. At number 7, we have 37 degrees north, 59 degrees east, Fukushima, Japan. For anyone who is unaware why Fukushima is a place you do not want to visit, it is home to the second largest nuclear disaster ever. In 2011, a major earthquake hit Fukushima, damaging a power plant, causing the city to evacuate. Since then, no one has been allowed to return, and the situation has improved, but it is not looking great. In order to keep the core cool of this power plant that melted down, they are constantly pouring water on top of them. This water is then contaminated with radiation, obviously, and they must contain it so it doesn't spread. But they are running out of places to put this contaminated water. Also, the city is now overgrown with vegetation. With the absence of people, the forests have started to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. And with it has brought a little bit of wildlife. I talked about this in a previous video, but I wanted to mention again because this is actually crazy. Radioactive wild boars have come into Fukushima and are thriving. For whatever reason, they do not seem to be afraid of radiation, and they are staking their claim on the land. This is how monster movies start. Next thing you know, we're gonna have giant mutant pigs swimming across the Pacific Ocean, coming here to eat the West. At number 6, we have 2 degrees south, 36 degrees east, Lake Natron, Tanzania. From a distance, this lake seems like a bronze wonder. The color and stillness looks like something pulled right out of a travel magazine. But this is the last lake you would want to take a swim in. There is only 3 things that have managed to live in this lake. 1 species of fish, 1 type of flamingo, and some algae. Everything else that touches this water dies extremely fast. Why is that? Well, the pH in the lake can sit around 9 and sometimes stretch up to 10.5. The animals that call this place home have adapted to the harsh conditions. But let's say a bird unfamiliar with the area decides to take a dip. Their eyes and skin will be burned from the high pH levels, and the ending result will look like they've been hit with Medusa's gaze. At At number 5, we have 44 degrees south, 71 degrees west, Mount Washington, USA. Alright, we did a couple places in the excruciating heat, and now it's time to head into the bitter cold. Mount Washington is freezing, and it has temperatures that can reach 40 below. Fun fact about 40 below, that's where the two scales of Celsius and Fahrenheit meet. You can share that with your friends next time you're freezing to death in the -40 weather. I'm sure they'll love that little tidbit of information while their nose peels off. And if the brutal cold wasn't enough to make you want to avoid this place, it also has the fastest winds ever recorded on a mountain. 238 miles per hour. That's over 300 kilometers per hour. That's stronger than a Category 5 hurricane. The wind is so strong it will give your face freezer burn right before it rips it off and sends it hurling down the mountain. At number 4 on the list, we have 24 degrees south, 46 degrees west, Snake Island, Brazil. I didn't make this place up. I know it sounds like something pulled out of a cheesy low-budget 80s action movie, but it's real, and it has enough snakes living there to make the cast of The Real Housewives for decades. There is one snake for every square foot. I don't have a fear of snakes, but there's still no way I'm going to get close to this place, especially since almost every species on the island is extremely venomous. There's even rumors that snakes will swim off the island to boats that are too close and kill the people on board and then eat them. I even heard there's a symbiotic relationship with the birds on the island and the snakes on the island, where the birds will pick up the snakes and then drop them on people who are on the island so they get like an air attack and kill them. That one I made up. I just kind of wanted to hype up the story a little bit more. But your real biggest worry is about getting bitten and then having to ride in a boat back to the mainland to go see a doctor. It's a 90-kilometer trip, so you would probably be dead before you got anywhere close to any sort of medical attention. At number 3, we have 3 degrees north, 98 degrees east, Cinebung Volcano, Indonesia. I mean, who wouldn't want to live right next to an active volcano? It seems like a swell place to raise a family. But you guys are probably wondering, well, you can live next to an active volcano, but that doesn't mean it's gonna blow up all the time. Well, between the years 2010 and 2016, Cinebung has popped off 5 times in 6 years. That is crazy. This place has blown up more times in 6 years than Conor McGregor has fought. And he is a professional fighter. I hope he doesn't find me and then kick my ass. I don't know, that could happen. I'm sure it's a beautiful place, but it would be hard to tell with all the constant lava flowing through it. This volcano is part of the Ring of Fire, which is a string of volcanoes lining up with tectonic plates that erupt more often than usual. So I'm not eager to check this place out, but you guys can go for me. At number 2, we have 25 degrees north, 70 degrees west, the Bermuda Triangle. Any kid growing up in the 90s heard about the Bermuda Triangle again and again. It was the plot point in every show from Scooby-Doo to Jackie Chan's adventures. Yo, remember Jackie Chan had a cartoon and it was absolute fire? That cartoon was so good. Anyways, the Bermuda Triangle is a large chunk of the Atlantic situated between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, and has been a hotspot for people disappearing. Planes, boats, rescue missions all have vanished without a trace, and it leaves people baffled as to what is going on. Some people think it's a hotspot for storms to kick up, other people say there's magnetic forces that destroy navigation equipment. The crazier theories suggest that the Bermuda Triangle is a gateway for interdimensional travel, that aliens use this to fly across the universe in an instant. Even though there's a lot of disappearances from this area, many of them have been explained, but there's still a ton of cases that leave people wondering what's going on in this mysterious chunk of ocean. I don't know why I did that tongue thing at the end. And number 1 on our list is 40 degrees north, 58 degrees east, the Darvaza gas crater, Turkmenistan. Right off the bat, this place is nicknamed the door to hell. It has an even creepier nickname than that other hell place. Not the place you want to spend your honeymoon, unless you're both super metal, then it's probably like a great choice. Turkmenistan has a massive natural gas reserve, and that has been the fuel to the door to hell. It was back in 1971 when Turkmenistan was still part of the Soviet Union. There was construction underway, and a drilling operation caused a large amount of the earth to collapse in. And what started flowing out of it? A toxic gas. If it wasn't dealt with quickly, it would have poisoned the entire area. Good news though, the gas was flammable, so the Soviets figured, we'll just light it on fire, it'll burn for a little while, and then we'll get back to work, comrade. Well, it did catch on fire, and then it did burn, but it never stopped. It has been burning since 1971, and has no sign of going out anytime soon. And if a giant pit of fire wasn't enough to keep you away, Turkmenistan is run by a dictator. Have a nice vacation. location.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Pigeon People. Japan is the home to many wonderful things, and that includes the wacky, bizarre Pigeon People of Google Earth. Yes, you heard me correctly. What looks absolutely terrifying on the surface is thankfully most likely just a strange prank, but basically it saw a group, all wearing pigeon heads, lined up on the sidewalk ready for the Google camera as it went by. It's definitely a strange sight to begin with, but it's made even weirder by the turn of their heads in order to follow the camera. Honestly, really unsettling when you first look at it. I mean, pigeons are already weird creatures, so this little prank definitely has a bit of an eerie feeling to it, but the good news is that it's likely just a fun group of students from the art school that is nearby to this weird scene found on Google Maps.
In at 9, the SS Mahino. The SS Mahino actually has quite the interesting story. Originally a passenger ship, during World War I, New Zealand converted the vessel into a floating hospital of sorts. After the war though, it was returned to a passenger ship, which in my mind is kinda freaky. Yeah, this is a passenger ship now, but it used to house hundreds of wounded soldiers. Totally worth the ticket price. But I'm guessing the whole floating hospital thing kinda hurt sales, since the ship was sold to an Osaka shipbreaker company in 1935, who intended to tear it apart for scrap metal. However, the ship never made it to the buyer. A cyclone had severed the tow line connected to the Una, the ship that was doing the towing. You can now see the wreck on Google Earth on the beach of Frasers Island off the coast of Queensland, Australia. There was also a small crew on board that luckily survived, but if the ship was in such a state that it had to be towed, why was there a crew on it? Maybe it was to maintain the ship or something, but I mean, if it was gonna be used for scrap metal anyway, does it really matter?
In our 8th spot today, we have Costa Concordia. On January 13th of 2012, the Italian cruise ship Costa Concordia crashed into underwater rocks in shallow waters that they didn't see coming. The impact left damage to the ship and it started to sink. Eventually, it capsized completely and sank to the ground. The rescue took a total of 6 hours, and most passengers did make it back on shore. Sadly, 34 people lost their lives in this tragedy, 27 passengers, 5 crew members, and 2 rescue workers. The ship was unsalvageable, so it was left on the coast of Giglio Island in Italy, where it sunk. Images of the sunken ship have been captured on Google Earth. There are multiple photos of the ship laying on its side, and over the years you can see the ship become more and more deteriorated.
And at 7, the St. Christopher. The St. Christopher will likely spend the rest of its days, those days in a sense being eternal because it's a ship, in the harbor of Ushuaia in southern Argentina. The ship, as a part of the Land Lease Act, was an American-built rescue tugboat that served in the British Royal Navy during World War II. The Navy decommissioned it after the war and sold it to a man in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 1947. It was chartered for salvage operations but ran into engine trouble and rudder damage in the Beagle Channel by Ushuaia. The St. Christopher ran ashore in 1957 and was abandoned, with the remaining fuel being drained to prevent an environmental disaster. But not until 2004. Great hustle, gents. Nearly 50 years later, huh? Really got your priorities sorted. I guess I had you looking in the wrong section. How could I be so stupid? I really hope that that trend isn't dead when this goes out. It might be.
Coming in at number 6, we have the SS Jasm. This ship holds the title for one of the largest shipwrecks ever seen on Google Earth. The SS Jasm was a Bolivian cargo ferry that sunk on the Wingate Reef off the coast of Sudan. On the evening of December 1st, 2003, this ship sunk, and to this day, it is still unclear as to why it sunk. On Google Earth, you can see this big white ship laying on its side, in the same position where it capsized. Besides that, the ship remains a mystery. Now it's another popular dive spot for scuba divers and snorkelers.
Halfway through, and at number 5, the Garden of Eden. Now, I'm not a religious man per se, but I know the stories. The Garden of Eden was meant to be a utopia. Adam was placed here and told that he could eat from any tree aside from the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. They end up eating from the tree anyway and then are cast out of the garden. Well, in layman's terms at least. But there are many theories or ideas as to where this garden was on Earth. Some think that it wasn't on Earth, but multiple renditions place it in Iraq. One of them specifically claiming Basra as the location of the garden, which only makes this giant vessel off the coast even more intriguing. In the northwest section of Arvand Rood, you can see a capsized ship roughly 150 meters long and just over 50 meters offshore. And apparently this isn't the only shipwreck in Arvand Rood either. Just the only one that you can see particularly from Google Earth.
Coming in at number 4, we have the SS Francisco Morazzin. On November 27th of 1960, the SS Francisco Morazzin left Chicago and headed out towards Holland. They had 940 tons of cargo aboard the ship. However, they never made it to their destination. By day 2 of traveling, they ran into a wild snowstorm. The wind speed was going 40 miles per hour, and as a result, water was being swept aboard the ship. Not only that, but they couldn't see anything. They were blinded by the snow and heavy fog. With their vision being impaired, they accidentally sailed their ship right into shallow water, trapping them by South Manitou Island. Now, the crew ended up abandoning the ship and it was just left there. The ship's owner never came forward and claimed it, so it was literally left there to rot. You can still see it today, just chilling in Lake Michigan.
Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Skeleton Coast. Skeleton Coast sits just north of Lüderitz in Namibia, and was named thanks to the countless whale and sea bones that had once littered the shore, thanks to its whaling history. However, nowadays, it's more so home to the skeletal remains of shipwrecks that are commonly caught ashore by rocks and fog. The 976-mile long, or 1,570 kilometers for the rest of the world, Skeleton Coast is littered with shipwrecks, and that's due to, if you don't mind a little science, when the Atlantic's cold currents mix with the warm air of the Namib Desert, they end up creating a cold, dense fog. The kind that Scooby-Doo would cut a burger out of using a dead pirate's sword and then eat. The burger, not the sword. According to BBC, the British Broadcasting Company, you crazies, the Khoisan Bushmen refer to Skeleton Coast as the land God created in anger, which is a whole other can of worms that I'm not gonna touch. Seems like a fun vacation spot though, if you want to get smitten by Chuck.
In our second spot, we have the MS World Discoverer, and sadly, this one did not get to discover the world. The MS World Discoverer was a Danish cruise ship that was constructed in 1974, and for over 25 years it changed ownership a number of times. That was until one day on April of 2000 when it took its last cruise. It was sailing in the Pacific Ocean when it struck an uncharted reef formation. Thankfully, all the passengers were rescued. The crew sent out a distress signal and a passenger ferry came to their help. All passengers were put on the passenger ferry. Now, before anyone could arrange to save the ship, it was actually ransacked and looted by locals. They then decided that saving the ship would be far too expensive and tough, so it wouldn't be worth it. So they left it there ever since. On Google Maps, you can see this ship just chilling on its side.
And finally, in at number 1, the Costa Verde. An avid UFO hunter looking for signs of alien activity on Google Earth believes that he had discovered 3 new shipwrecks. Scott C. Waring posted his discovery on the website UFOsightingsdaily.com, which usually features details of alleged UFO or alien sightings. A website that I didn't know existed until now, but I'm definitely gonna have to look it up later. The alien hunter highlighted 3 dark boat-shaped objects in the shallow area off the coast of Costa Verde, which is a really weird thing to say, but in Mexico. He posted on May 4th, 2017, quote, "You know me, always searching for the hidden mysteries of life. Well, today I stumbled upon something that's not a UFO, but is still absolutely amazing due to its size. One wreck, the first on his list, was 138 meters long, which is more than half the length of the Titanic, which you are also able to find on Google Earth, but you have to type in the coordinates to where it's sunk. You can't actually see the wreck. Here's the coordinates if you want to look it up for yourself. It should be here somewhere. He also found a 61 meter long ship and a 12 meter long fishing boat in the same area, which makes me think maybe he did find evidence of aliens. Oh.
At number 10, we have 36 degrees north, 117 degrees west, Death Valley, USA. One of the worst spots in America to get lost on a hiking trip. Now, thanks to air-conditioned cars and cell phones, most people won't meet their end in this wasteland. But back when pioneers had to cross this desert, it was one of the most challenging tasks imaginable. If you were caught out there without supplies, you would last less than a day. Either dehydration, sunstroke, or one of the many predators living out there would make you meet your end faster than a pizza pocket when I'm drunk. Death Valley has the highest recorded temperature on the planet, clocking in at 57 degrees Celsius. The whole joke about being hot enough to fry an egg on the sidewalk is real there, except it won't be an egg. It will be your intestines as a vulture rips them out of your stomach. And if you manage to make it through the day into the night, the temperature will plummet. In the winter, it can get as cold as -10 Celsius. As beautiful as the desert can be, I don't think I would want this to be my next vacation spot. If you're ever traveling through there, make sure sure you bring a ton of water and some blankets just in case your car breaks down. That would suck.
In our number 9 spot today, we have the invitation. This weird Google Maps image comes to us from Memphis, Tennessee, and while I've never been, I've heard wonderful, wonderful things. That is all except for this weird message that was found as someone was searching through Google Maps, and it's located on the top of the building. Someone wrote this message, and it's gotta be pretty large considering it was so easy to read, even from this distance, but the message says, "Come downtown and play." I don't know what kind of Pennywise is out there writing these kinds of messages, but I know I'm not crazy and there's something almost sinister feeling about it. It is likely some sort of marketing tactic or something of that nature. I mean, at least I hope it is, but from a distance, when it looks like it could be something that was spray painted by a random person, it just seems weird, you know? I just know I probably won't be RSVPing to this invite anytime soon. Thanks, but no thanks. In our number 8 spot today, we have the disposal. Mannequins are always creepy. I don't care, they just are. My old roommate was a hairdresser, and when she was in school, sometimes I'd go to get a glass of water in the middle of the night and be absolutely startled by the disembodied head I saw, and only after the near heart attack realize in my sleepy state that it in fact was just a mannequin head. Well, you can imagine people got a lot of the same sort of feeling when they were on Google Maps and saw this sight of all of these discarded mannequins that truly for a second looks like it's a pile of bodies sitting in the trash. How horrifying. This site was seen on Google Maps in Chile and it definitely was freaking people out. I wonder what these mannequins were used for. I mean, there's a ton of them, so it must have been used for some sort of clothing shop or like a seamstress or something, right? Maybe it's just wishful thinking, but that's what I'm choosing to believe. In our number 7 spot today, we have friendship. This is one Google Maps sighting that doesn't have a lot of information behind it, which definitely makes it all the more eerie. Basically, this is just an image of a group of friends standing together in the desert. Maybe a little strange, but not so weird. Right? Well, yeah, except for the weird masks they're wearing and the fact that they're all staring directly at the camera. I'm sure the story behind this one is that these friends saw the Google Maps car coming and decided to play a little prank, probably similar to the Pigeon People, but I mean, no one has been able to confirm this, and who keeps a bunch of scary masks on them? I mean, I guess the mission these people set out on was likely accomplished, because here we are, talking about this creepy prank. In our number 6 spot today, we have the SS Yasim Wreck. The SS Yasim was a Bolivian cargo ship that sank on the evening of December 1st, 2003. For a while, no one was quite sure as to why it sank, as well as the fact that no one could find the wreck. This was honestly very strange just in general, but also especially because of the fact that the ship was quite large at 265 feet. This is exactly why it was so surprising when, a few years ago, the Google Maps team located the sunken vessel based on their satellite imaging. The ship was found on its side, perhaps in the same location it initially sank, in Wingate Reef just off of the coast of Sudan. The mystery as to why the wreck was never found was realized because of the location of it. The wreck is close to an island where an uncontacted tribe lives. Of course, for the safety of both the tribe as well as outsiders who might not be welcomed, people thankfully tend to leave the island alone, but this is exactly why the wreck wasn't found for so long. This wreck then became one of the largest visible on Google Earth until quite recently. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Gobi Desert structure. This is one discovery that I talked about recently, and it's one that had conspiracy theorists' minds absolutely swirling. About a decade ago, someone was searching through some Google Maps images when they found a mysterious array of structures and patterns that appeared to be etched into the surface of the Gobi Desert, which is located in China. The structures, as they are referred to, are kind of similar to geoglyphs, but these ones look modern and newly created, and rather than actually being carved into the ground, they're made of something. The internet, of course, came up with some pretty insane speculations of what these structures could be, or what they might be used for, and the ideas stretched from spy satellite calibration to some sort of Illuminati affiliated product, so who really knows at this point? In our number 4 spot today, we have the perpetrators. Okay, so this picture is definitely not really terrifying itself, but the story behind it certainly is. So basically, in 2011, a woman who lives in Oklahoma City was unfortunately the victim of a terrible crime. She was held at gunpoint by one man while another raided her home. I can't even imagine. That must have been so terrible and terrifying. So imagine her surprise one day when a friend of hers was on Google Maps in her neighborhood, and who does she see other than the 2 people who committed this crime against her? They were seen on the street camera hanging out apparently near her home. She of course first called the police and turned the images over to them, and it is said that they are using them in the investigation. It is unclear if they were ever able to catch the perpetrators or not, but hopefully this image proved to be useful. In our number 3 spot today we have the escape artist. Listen, not everything appears as it is on the surface, but this one at best is definitely fishy. Basically, it appears as if the Google Maps camera may have caught someone as they escape prison. This photo comes from Michigan and it was taken by Google in front of the Lenawee County Jail. Basically, in the image, you see a guy walking in a white jumpsuit with black stripes, carrying a bag on his shoulder, with the jail visible in the background. When someone initially saw this on Google Maps, they of course screenshotted it and posted it to Reddit asking people if Google caught someone as they were escaping. Honestly, we aren't exactly sure, but it is entirely possible that this inmate was just a trusted one who was on some kind of work duty where they were doing some work outside of the fence. Perhaps whoever was supervising just wasn't in the view of the Google car. Either that or this guy's the most calm escapee I've ever seen. In our number 2 spot today we have caught red-handed. In 2008, a young man in Holland was biking home when 2 men ended up ambushing him, and they stole his bike, phone, and the cash he had on him. First, authorities were having trouble finding who the 2 men were that did this to him because of a lack of evidence, but just 6 months later there was a break in the case. The boy was looking at the street view of where the incident happened, and as he explored just a little bit, he found that the Google Maps car camera had captured the moments just prior to this terrible incident. That means that the camera captured the faces of those who had stolen his belongings. He ended up calling the police, who then called Google and asked for the unblurred versions of the photos. When Google delivered them, the police realized that they were able to directly identify the pair in the photo, who were a pair of 24-year-old brothers. Who knew that Google Maps could help bring people to justice? In our number 1 spot today we have the cold case. This is one thing that was discovered on Google Maps that is really similar to a story that I covered in part 1 of this series. Basically, in 2007, someone was on Google Maps when they spotted something in a body of water that appeared to them to be a car. It turns out that they were right, and they helped the authorities solve an over 20-year-old cold case. Apparently, a man named William Molt was reported missing from Florida on November 7th, 1997. He never returned home after a night out, and police had been searching for him ever since. Once that person in 2007 brought what they found to the police, they were able to investigate and they found the missing vehicle. Inside was a body that they were finally able to identify as the missing William. It truly is a very tragic story, but at least he was finally found so that he can be returned to his loved ones and they can have some closure to the story.